The huge space station called Council Central floated in the middle of nowhere between three bright stars. It was bigger than most planets and had been the center of galactic politics for thousands of years. Today, the main meeting hall was packed with delegates from every corner of the galaxy. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho walked slowly toward the speaking platform. His black uniform had the Earth symbol on the chest, and his shoes made soft clicking sounds on the smooth metal floor. Behind him walked 5 other humans. They had traveled for 3 months to reach this place, and now their future hung in the balance. The meeting hall was enormous. It could hold 10,000 beings, and today every seat was filled. Strange creatures sat in rows that stretched up toward the ceiling. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others glowed with inner light. A few were so alien that humans could not even guess what they were. Commander Park So-jin sat in the human section, which was placed far to the side. She wore her military uniform and kept her face calm, but inside she felt angry. The council had given humans the worst seats in the house. They were so far from the center that they needed screens to see what was happening. Lee Minwoo adjusted his thick glasses and looked around the hall. He had spent 20 years developing new medicines that had saved millions of alien lives. His work had stopped 3 major plagues and created cures for diseases that had killed entire species. Yet here he sat, treated like a child. Engineer Choi Hai-jin checked her datapad one more time. The numbers were clear. Human technology had protected 15 worlds from asteroid strikes. Human shields had stopped invasions on 12 planets. Human patrol ships had kept the space lanes safe for commercial traffic. The evidence was overwhelming. Captain Nam Young-soo stood at attention behind the ambassador. He had commanded human ships in 6 major battles. His forces had never lost a single engagement. They had rescued alien civilians from pirates and natural disasters. They had asked for nothing in return except respect. Dr. Yoon Hae-won carried a medical bag even to political meetings. It was a habit from her years running emergency hospitals on alien worlds. She had personally treated over 50,000 patients from dozens of different species. She knew their biology better than many of their own doctors. Ambassador Tae-ho reached the speaking platform and looked out at the sea of alien faces. Some were friendly, but most looked bored or annoyed. The humans had requested this meeting 6 months ago. It had taken this long just to get on the schedule. Prime Speaker Nexus stood at the center of the hall. It was a tall crystal being that glowed with blue light. Its voice sounded like music when it spoke. The human delegation will now present their petition for full membership in the Galactic Council. Tae-ho activated the microphone. His voice carried clearly through the hall. Honored members of the Council, we come before you today to request full membership. Humanity has met every requirement listed in the Galactic Charter. We have contributed to galactic peace and prosperity. We have defended the innocent and helped those in need. A sound like laughter came from the Vorthak section. The Vorthak were large, insect-like creatures with multiple eyes and sharp claws. Their delegates stood up without permission. Humans want full membership? These barely evolved primates have been in space for less than 100 years. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. More laughter came from other sections. The Slitheri delegate raised its serpent-like head. Perhaps the humans should learn to walk before they try to run. Their technology is primitive. Their culture is violent. They are not ready for civilized company. Commander Park So-jin felt her hands form fists. She had fought beside alien soldiers. She had seen human troops die protecting alien civilians. The idea that humans were too violent made her sick with anger. The ethereal collective sent a shimmering energy form to the speaker platform. These beings were made of pure thought and energy. They rarely spoke at council meetings. We have observed the human species for decades. They show limited potential for growth. Their minds are too simple to understand advanced concepts. Dr. Lee Min-woo stood up in the human section. With respect, my medical research has advanced galactic healthcare by centuries. Human innovation has solved problems that stumped your best scientists. The ethereal being flickered. Your crude solutions work, but they lack elegance. True advancement requires sophisticated thinking which humans do not possess. Engineer Choi Hae-jin activated her datapad and sent information to the main screens. These are the defensive systems we have built. They protect millions of alien lives every day. How is this primitive? The Klaxon delegate looked at the data with interest. The Klaxons were one of the few species that had worked closely with humans. Their representative spoke up. The human defensive systems are indeed impressive. Perhaps we should consider their request more carefully. But the Klaxon voice was drowned out by angry sounds from the other delegates. The Vorthak delegate clicked its mandibles loudly. The Klaxons have been corrupted by human influence. They cannot think clearly anymore. Prime. Speaker Nexus raised one crystal arm for silence. The Council recognizes the Draconian Empire delegation. The Draconian delegate was a massive, lizard-like creature with golden scales. Its voice was deep and threatening. Dragons have ruled space since before most of these species existed. We find the human request insulting. They should be grateful. For observer status, full membership is far beyond their capabilities. Captain Nam Young-soo could not stay quiet. Human ships have rescued Draconian civilians from pirates 12 times in the last year. We have never asked for payment or favors. We helped because it was right. The Draconian delegate hissed. Exactly our point. You help without thinking. You act on emotion instead of logic. This proves you are not ready for galactic leadership. The insults continued for 2 hours. Delegate after delegate stood up to explain why humans were not worthy of full membership. They called humans primitive, violent, stupid, and dangerous. They said human technology was crude and human culture was backwards. Through it all, the human delegation sat quietly. Ambassador Taeho kept his face calm, but inside, he felt a growing coldness. These beings had accepted human help for decades. They had been saved by human courage and protected by human sacrifice. Now they acted as if humans were barely worth acknowledging. Dr. Yun Hae-won thought about the alien patients she had treated. She had worked 30-hour shifts to save their lives. She had held their hands as they died and comforted their families. She had given everything she had to help them. This was how they repaid her kindness. Finally, Prime Speaker Nexus called for a vote. All in favor of granting full membership to the human species. Only 3 delegates raised their hands. The Klaxons voted yes. 2 small peaceful species also supported the humans. Everyone else remained seated. All opposed to human membership. The hall erupted as hundreds of delegates stood up. The vote was not even close. Humanity had been rejected by an overwhelming margin, but Prime Speaker Nexus was not finished. There is also a secondary motion to review human observer status. Perhaps these beings are not ready for any participation in galactic affairs. The second vote was even more crushing. Only the Klaxons supported keeping humans in the council. Everyone else wanted them gone completely. Ambassador Taeho stood slowly. His face showed no emotion, but his voice was cold as ice. We understand the council's position. Humanity withdraws from all galactic affairs immediately. We will not trouble you again. The human delegation walked out in complete silence. Their footsteps echoed in the huge hall as every alien eye watched them leave. The massive doors closed. Behind them, with a sound like thunder. In the hall, the aliens began to celebrate. They had finally removed the annoying humans from galactic politics. They could now run the galaxy without interference from these primitive newcomers. None of them realized they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The species they had insulted and rejected was about to leave them to face the darkness alone. Admiral Kang Junho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the main window. His fleet of 12 ships protected the Miran system from pirates and raiders. For 15 years, human forces had kept this sector safe. Now, everything was about to change. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Taeho's tired face. The diplomatic meeting had ended badly, and the news was worse than expected. Admiral, the Council has voted to remove humanity from all galactic affairs. We are no longer welcome in their space. Kang felt his jaw tighten. He had fought beside alien soldiers and protected alien civilians. His ships had saved thousands of lives without asking for anything in return. This was how they were repaid. Understood, Ambassador. What are your orders? Operation Homecoming is now active. All human personnel must withdraw from Council space within 90 days. We leave behind nothing that could benefit those who rejected us. The Admiral turned to his crew. These men and women had served with honor for years. They deserved better than this dismissal. All hands, this is Admiral Kong. We have new orders. Send message to all human ships in the galaxy. We are going home. Captain Nam Young-soo looked confused. Sir, what about the merchant convoys we are escorting? The Moran colonies depend on those supply runs. Not our problem anymore, Captain. The Council made their choice. They can deal with the consequences. Across the galaxy, the withdrawal began. Immediately, human ships received the same message and started the long journey back to Earth. They left behind empty patrol routes and undefended systems. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to live without human protection on the medical station orbiting Nexus Prime's homeworld. Dr. Yoon Hae-won supervised the evacuation of her staff. The facility had treated over 2 million alien patients. The medical database contained cures for dozens of diseases that had once killed entire species. Doctor, what do we do with the patients in critical care? Asked her assistant Dr. Kim Soo-jin. Looked at the medical charts. 37 beings from different species lay in beds fighting for their lives. Without human medical technology, most would die within days. Transfer them to local hospitals. Give them copies of our treatment protocols. After that, we cannot help them. The alien medical staff pleaded with her to stay. Please, Dr. Yoon, your knowledge is irreplaceable. Without your treatments, thousands will die. I'm sorry, but the Council was very clear. Humans are not welcome here. We must respect their decision. The evacuation took 3 days. Medical equipment worth billions of credits was packed into transport ships. Research data that had taken decades to collect was transferred to secure servers. The station that had been the center of galactic medicine became an empty shell on the industrial world of Kepler 442b. Engineer Choi Hae-jin directed the removal of defensive systems. The shield generators she had designed protected the planet from asteroid strikes and solar flares. Without them, the world would be defenseless against natural disasters. Engineer Choi, please reconsider, begged the planetary governor. These shields have saved millions of lives. We cannot maintain them without human expertise. Hae-jin felt genuine pain at the request. She had spent 5 years perfecting these systems. They were like her children, and she was abandoning them. I have no choice. The Council voted against human membership. They clearly do not value our contributions. The disassembly took 2 weeks. Each shield generator was carefully removed and loaded onto transport ships. The power systems were shut down and the control centers were emptied. When the humans left, the planet had no protection from space hazards. Commander Park Seo-jin led her Marines in evacuating the research station on Tau Ceti. The facility had been developing new defensive technologies that could protect entire star systems. The research was years ahead of anything the aliens had created. Ma'am, the Klaxon delegation is requesting a meeting, reported Sergeant Kim Dong-wook. They want to discuss continuing the research partnership. Seo-jin shook her head. No exceptions, Sergeant. The Council voted as one body. They can face the consequences as one body. The research data was encrypted and transferred to Earth. Prototype weapons were dismantled and packed away. The aliens watched helplessly as decades of collaborative work disappeared before their eyes. On Earth, President Moon Jae-in addressed the nation from his office in Seoul. The Korean leader had been instrumental in humanity's expansion into space. Now he had to explain why they were coming home. My fellow humans, we offered friendship to the galaxy and were rejected. We offered our knowledge and were dismissed. We offered our protection and were insulted. Today we return to our roots, but we do not return in defeat. The President's calm voice carried across the world. We return with our dignity intact. We return with our technology advanced. We return with our humanity strengthened. The galaxy has chosen to do without us. We will honor that choice. The withdrawal was not just military and scientific. Human teachers left alien schools, taking with them new educational methods. Human artists removed their works from galactic museums. Human traders canceled all contracts and closed their businesses. Darli Minwu packed his research from the Biological Institute on Alpha Centauri. His work on genetic diseases had saved countless alien lives. The treatments he had developed were too complex for alien scientists to replicate. Dr. Lee, please leave your research data, pleaded the institute director. Without your treatments, the mortality rate will increase by 300%. I'm sorry, but this research belongs to humanity. The council made it clear that human contributions are not valued. The evacuation continued for 3 months. Every human facility was emptied, and every human citizen was brought home. They left behind a galaxy that had grown dependent on their protection and innovation. The space lanes that had been patrolled by human ships became dangerous. Pirates and raiders moved into the undefended sectors. Merchant vessels that had traveled safely for years now required armed escorts. The medical facilities that had relied on human expertise began to fail. Diseases that had been conquered started to reappear. The mortality rate in several systems began to climb as alien doctors struggled without human knowledge. Research projects that had depended on human innovation ground to a halt. The aliens discovered that human creativity and problem-solving skills could not be easily replaced. Their own scientists worked methodically but lacked the intuitive leaps that had made human researchers so valuable. On the final day of withdrawal, the last human ship left Council space. Captain Li Jiangsu looked back at the stars they were leaving behind. Sir, we are now outside Council territory. Operation Homecoming is complete. Admiral Kong nodded. Take us home, Captain. The galaxy wanted to be rid of us. Now they have their wish? The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind empty stations and abandoned facilities. The galaxy was now free of human interference. Soon they would learn what that freedom truly cost. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, the delegates celebrated their victory. Finally, we are free of human meddling, declared the Vorthek representative. Now we can govern the galaxy properly. But in the outer systems, pirates were already moving. Ancient enemies were stirring. And the first signs of trouble were beginning to appear. The galaxy had gotten what it asked for. Soon it would regret that wish. 3 months after the humans left, the galaxy began to change. The changes were small at first, but they grew larger every day. In the outer rim systems, where human patrol ships had once kept the peace pirates, started to gather. Captain Veltar of the Vorthik Defense Force stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His mandibles clicked nervously as he read the reports. 17 merchant ships had vanished in the past week. All had disappeared in sectors that had been perfectly safe for 20 years. Sir, we are receiving distress calls from the Proxima trade route, reported his communications officer. Pirates are attacking the supply convoys in broad daylight. Veltar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Where are the human patrol ships? They always handled outer rim security. Sir, the humans are gone. Remember, the council voted them out. The weight of those words hit him like a physical blow. For decades, human ships had maintained peace in the dangerous outer systems. Their small, fast vessels had been everywhere, stopping trouble before it could spread. Now those guardians were gone and chaos was taking their place. The pirates were not the only problem. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, the early warning systems had begun to fail. Without human engineers to maintain the complex equipment, the detection networks were breaking down. Governor Thexani received the alarm at 3 a.m. A massive asteroid had suddenly changed course due to gravitational interference. The object was heading straight for the northern continent where 50 million beings lived. How long until impact? He asked his science advisor. 14 hours, sir. The asteroid is 12 kilometers wide. If it hits the populated areas, the death toll will be enormous. What about the shield generators? Can we deflect it? The science advisor looked embarrassed. Sir, the human engineers took the shield generators with them. We have no planetary defenses. The asteroid struck at dawn. The impact created a crater, 300 kilometers wide, and killed 40 million beings instantly. The shock wave flattened cities and the resulting fires burned for weeks. It was the worst natural disaster in the planet's history. Governor X and I sent desperate messages to the council begging for help. We need human engineers immediately. They are the only ones who understand the shield technology. Please send them back. The council's response was cold and bureaucratic. Alternative solutions will be investigated. The galaxy does not require human assistance. But finding alternatives proved harder than expected. The shield technology was based on human innovations that alien scientists could not fully understand. The systems required constant adjustment and maintenance that only human engineers could provide. On the research station orbiting Tau Ceti, the problems were different but equally serious. Alien scientists tried to continue the defensive research that humans had pioneered. Without human creativity and intuitive problem-solving, their progress slowed to a crawl. Dr. Zexelon, the lead researcher, threw his datapad across the laboratory in frustration. We cannot replicate their approach. The humans saw connections that we missed. They found solutions that seemed impossible. His assistant, Dr. Morkin, looked at the failed experiments. Perhaps we should contact Earth directly. Maybe the humans would share their research methods. Absolutely not. The Council forbids any contact with the humans. We must find our own solutions. But their own solutions were proving inadequate. Research that had advanced rapidly under human guidance now moved at a pace that frustrated everyone involved. The aliens were methodical and logical, but they lacked the creative spark that had made human scientists so valuable. The medical crisis came next. The advanced treatments that Dr. Yun's team had developed were too complex for alien medical facilities to replicate. The procedures required intuitive understanding of biological systems that alien doctors did not possess on the Slitheri. Homeworld, a plague outbreak began spreading through the population. The disease had been conquered 15 years earlier by human medical researchers. The cure existed, but the alien doctors could not manufacture it properly. The molecular structure is too complex, explained the chief medical officer. Human biochemistry allowed them to see patterns that we cannot detect. Without their expertise, we cannot recreate the treatment. The death toll rose rapidly. Millions of Slitheri died from a disease that should have been easily treatable. The government sent frantic messages to the council demanding human medical assistance. Request denied, came the reply. The galaxy must learn to function without human dependence. The Klaxon Confederation faced their own crisis. As one of the few species that had supported humanity, they had worked closely with human engineers and scientists. Now they were paying the price for their friendship. The Klaxon worlds were protected by human-designed defensive systems. Without human maintenance, these systems began to fail. When their ancient enemies, the Devourers, launched a probe attack, the defenses crumbled. Ambassador Krikstal sent secret messages to Earth pleading for help. Please, we voted to support human membership. We tried to defend you in the Council. Do not let our people suffer for the mistakes of others. The response from Earth was polite but firm. We appreciate your past support, but the Council spoke with one voice. We cannot interfere in galactic politics. The Klaxon border worlds fell to Devourer raiders. Entire colonies were consumed and their populations enslaved. The aliens that had once mocked human military tactics now faced an enemy that human forces had always defeated. On the ethereal collective's homeworld, the energy beings faced a crisis of their own. Their consciousness existed in complex energy matrices that required precise harmonic resonance to maintain stability. The resonators that provided this stability had been designed by human engineers. Without proper maintenance, the matrices began to fluctuate. Several ethereal beings lost cohesion and their consciousness scattered into the void. For beings who had existed for millennia, this was the equivalent of death. We may have miscalculated, the collective admitted in their first emergency session in 1,000 years. The humans provided stability that we did not recognize. But admitting their mistake publicly would mean losing face before the other council species. Instead, they demanded that their subordinate races find alternative solutions. The cascade of failures continued across the galaxy. Trade routes became dangerous without human escorts. Merchant vessels that had traveled safely for decades now required armed protection. The cost of interstellar commerce increased dramatically. Research facilities that had depended on human innovation struggled to maintain their projects. Scientific advancement slowed as alien researchers worked without the creative input that humans had provided. Educational systems that had used human teaching methods began to fail. Student performance dropped as alien educators tried to replicate human pedagogical techniques without understanding the underlying principles. In the council chambers, the complaints grew louder each day. Delegate after delegate reported problems in their territories. The Vorthak complained about piracy. The Slitheri demanded medical assistance. The Klaxons pleaded for military support, but none would admit the obvious truth. They needed the humans. Prime Speaker Nexus maintained the official position despite growing pressure. These are temporary difficulties. The galaxy will adapt and grow stronger without human interference. But privately, doubt began to creep in. The being of living. Crystal had ruled for centuries and had never seen such widespread problems. The humans had not just been members of the galactic community. They had been its problem solvers, its innovators, its guardians. The first cracks in the Council's confidence had appeared. The beings who had dismissed humanity as primitive were beginning to realize what they had lost. But pride prevented them from admitting their mistake. In the outer systems, the problems grew worse each day. Pirates became bolder without human patrols to stop them. Ancient enemies stirred without human diplomats to mediate conflicts. Natural disasters struck without human engineers to provide protection. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson. The species they had rejected as primitive had been holding their civilization together. Now that support was gone and everything was starting to fall apart. The first cracks had appeared in the galactic order. Soon they would become breaks, and then the entire system would collapse. 6 months after the human exodus, the galaxy faced its worst crisis in 1,000 years. The Devourer Empire had been watching from the dark spaces between stars. They had seen the human withdrawal and recognized opportunity. The Devourers were the galaxy's oldest nightmare. These beings consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but dead space behind. For centuries they had been contained by careful diplomacy and strategic defenses. Human forces had often served as rapid response teams that stopped small raids from becoming major invasions. Now that protection was gone and the Devourers struck with devastating force, Admiral Zekmuth stood in the Combined Fleet Command Center, watching tactical displays painted red with enemy positions. The Devourer fleet had appeared simultaneously in 17 different sectors. It was the largest coordinated attack in galactic history. How did they organize so quickly? He demanded of his intelligence staff. "Sir, they have been planning this for months," replied his aide nervously. "They knew the human patrol network was gone. They waited until our defenses were weakest." The first major battle took place in the Kepler system, where a Devourer fleet of 300 ships encountered local defense forces. The battle was a complete disaster. Without human tactical doctrine and rapid response capabilities, the defenders were overwhelmed in 3 hours. Captain Veltar commanded one of the defending squadrons. His Vorthak ships were tough and well-armed, but they fought using predictable tactics. The Devourers had studied galactic military doctrine for centuries and knew how to counter every conventional strategy. "They are adapting to our weapons faster than we can fire them," reported his tactical officer. "Our energy beams are losing effectiveness." "What about the plasma cannons?" "They have developed countermeasures for those too, sir. It is like they know our every move before we make it." The Vorthak fleet was destroyed in minutes. Veltar's ship was the last to fall, and his final transmission was heard across the galaxy. The humans were right. We should have listened to them. On Earth, Admiral Kang Junho watched the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The aliens had called humans primitive and violent. Now they were learning what real violence looked like. They mocked our military tactics, he told his staff. Let us see how they handle an enemy that shows no mercy. The devourer bioweapons were the most terrifying part of their arsenal. These engineered plagues were designed to target specific genetic markers found in all council species. They spread through the air and water, making entire planets uninhabitable, Dr. Lia Minwoo monitored. The plague reports from his laboratory on Luna, the bioweapons were sophisticated beyond anything the aliens had encountered. Their doctors had no defense against diseases that attacked at the cellular level. I could help them develop immunity treatments, he told his research team. But my databases remain classified. The council made their choice. The medical crisis deepened as devourer plagues spread to multiple worlds. Billions of beings died from diseases that human medicine could have prevented. The alien medical systems collapsed under the strain of treating unknown pathogens. The Slitheri homeworld was hit particularly hard. The snake-like beings had no natural immunity to the bioweapons, and their population began dying in massive numbers. Their government sent desperate pleas to the Council for human medical assistance. Request denied, came the official response. The galaxy must handle this crisis without human intervention. But the galaxy was proving incapable of handling the crisis. The devourer invasion spread like wildfire through undefended systems. Without human rapid response forces to contain the outbreaks, each successful raid encouraged more attacks. The ethereal collective faced their own extinction as energy storms disrupted their consciousness matrices. The beings of pure thought began to dissipate as their harmonic resonators failed without human maintenance. We are dying, they broadcast to the Council. The resonators require human engineering knowledge that we do not possess. For the first time in a millennium, the advanced energy beings admitted they needed help from a supposedly primitive species. The confession sent shockwaves through the galactic community. On the industrial world of Kepler 442 be the population faced a double crisis. The planet was still recovering from the asteroid impact that had killed 40 million beings. Now, Devourer scout ships appeared in the system and the world had no defenses. Governor, Dex and I made a final desperate broadcast. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need human engineers. We need their shield technology. We need their medical knowledge. We are dying and we cannot save ourselves. The response from Earth was unchanged. The Council made their decision. We will not interfere in galactic affairs. The Klaxon Confederation made a desperate gambit. They formally withdrew from the Council and sent a direct plea to Earth. We are no longer part of the Council that rejected you. We voted to support human membership. Please help us save our people. President Moon Jae-in convened an emergency session of the human government. The debate was intense as leaders argued about their moral obligations. The Klaxons supported us when no one else would, argued Foreign Minister Park Ji-won. Do we not owe them our assistance? If we help one species, we undermine our position with all the others, countered Defense Minister Kim Soo-jin. The Council must face the consequences of their collective decision. The debate raged for hours, but the final decision was to maintain the isolation policy. The galaxy had rejected humanity as one voice and would face the consequences as one body. The Devourer advance continued unchecked. Trade routes collapsed as merchant vessels were destroyed or captured. Research facilities fell silent as alien scientists fled the advancing enemy. Medical systems crumbled as plagues spread faster than treatments could be developed. The cascading failures accelerated beyond anyone's ability to control. Each successful Devourer attack weakened the galactic defense network. Each fallen world provided resources for the next assault. In the Council chambers, panic replaced the arrogance that had dominated for months. The Vorthak representative who had mocked humanity now begged for military assistance. We must contact the humans immediately. They are the only ones who have successfully fought the Devourers. Never, declared Prime Speaker Nexus, though its crystalline form flickered with stress. We will not beg for help from those primitives. But the ethereal collective facing extinction finally broke ranks. We were wrong about the humans, they were never primitive. We were too advanced to recognize their true value. The confession shattered the last pretense of council unity. If the energy beings who had existed since the dawn of civilization could admit their mistake, what excuse did the others have? The draconian delegate whose species had ruled space for millennia stood slowly. Perhaps we should reconsider our position regarding the humans. I agree, said the Slitheri representative. My people are dying from plagues that human medicine could cure. One by one, the delegates began to voice doubts about their decision to expel humanity. The crisis was too severe, and the consequences too dire for pride to matter anymore. The breaking point came when long-range sensors detected the main Devourer fleet moving toward the galaxy's core. The force was massive beyond comprehension. Thousands of ships carrying enough bioweapons to sterilize entire star systems. They are heading for Nexus Prime, reported the tactical officer. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. The ultimate irony was not lost on anyone. The council that had rejected humanity now faced extinction from the very enemy that humans had always defeated. The vote in the emergency session that followed the vote was unanimous. The council would formally apologize to humanity and request immediate assistance. The message was sent to Earth with the weight of desperation behind every word. We were wrong. We need your help. Please save us. But on the edge of the galaxy, the Devourer fleet continued its advance. Time was running out, and the question remained whether human mercy would be enough to save a civilization that had rejected them. The cascade of failures had reached its climax. Now everyone would learn whether humanity's greatest strength was their ability to forgive those who had wronged them. The Nexus system burned like a dying star. The crystalline homeworld of the Council's most powerful species cracked under the assault of Devourer bioweapons. Their energy shields flickered and died as the invasion fleet moved closer to the capital. Prime. Speaker Nexus stood in the emergency bunker deep beneath the planet's surface. Its crystalline form had lost its usual blue glow and now appeared dull and fractured. Around it, the remaining council delegates huddled in fear as death approached from space. Casualty reports are coming in from all sectors, announced the communications officer. His voice shook with terror. 27 billion dead in the first wave. The Devourer fleet is advancing on the capital city. The numbers were too large to comprehend. Entire civilizations were being wiped out in hours. The bioweapons that had once been contained by human rapid response teams now spread unchecked across the galaxy. Our energy matrices are failing, reported the ethereal collective's representative. The being of pure thought flickered like a dying flame. The harmonic resonators that maintained our civilization are offline. The irony was bitter and complete. The technology they had dismissed as primitive was now their only hope for survival. The human-designed resonators that had kept their consciousness stable were breaking down without proper maintenance. Dr. Zexalon, the lead researcher from Tau Ceti, presented his final analysis. His hands shook as he activated the holographic display. I have studied the Devourer bioweapons extensively. They are engineered to target specific genetic markers found in all council species. All species? Asked the Vorthok delegate. All except one, Zexalon replied grimly. The bioweapons have no effect on human physiology. In fact, I believe the humans have encountered the Devourers before. Their medical databases contain references to similar pathogens. The revelation hit the chamber like a thunderbolt. The humans had not just been helpful allies. They had been the galaxy's shield against an ancient enemy that only they could defeat. Are you saying the humans are immune to Devourer weapons? Asked the Slitheri representative. More than immune, Zexalon answered. They have developed countermeasures. Their medical technology can neutralize the bioweapons completely. On Earth, the human leadership watched the galaxy's collapse with mixed emotions. The Situation Room beneath Geneva was filled with tension as reports streamed in from across the stars. The death toll has reached 2 trillion beings, reported Intelligence Director Kim Soo-jin. The Devourer fleet has consumed 67 systems and shows no signs of slowing. President Moon Jae-in stared at the tactical display that showed red, expanding across the galaxy like a cancer. What is our military assessment? The Devourer main fleet is approaching the galactic core, Admiral Kong replied. If they take Nexus Prime, the entire Council government will collapse. And our response? We are maintaining defensive positions around human space. The Devourers have not approached our systems yet, but when they do, we will be ready. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the magnitude of the crisis. The galaxy was dying, and only humanity had the power to save it. Dr. Lee Minwoo broke the silence. Sir, I have been monitoring alien medical frequencies. There are treatments we could provide that would save millions of lives. We have the knowledge to stop this plague. But they rejected us, countered Defense Minister Park Woo-won. They called us primitive and violent. They said we were not worthy of their respect. They were wrong, said Dr. Yoon Hae-won quietly. But does that mean we should let them die? The debate that followed would shape the future of human-alien relations. Some argued for intervention while others demanded that the aliens face the consequences of their choices. It was Foreign Minister Choi Hae-jin who spoke the words that changed everything. We do not help people because they deserve it. We help them because they need it. That is what makes us human. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Was humanity's greatest strength their technology and military might? Or was it their capacity for compassion even toward those who had wronged them? Back in the council chambers, the debate raged as the Devourer fleet drew closer. The delegates who had once dismissed humanity with contempt now faced their own extinction. We must contact the humans immediately, pleaded the Vorthik representative. They are the only ones who can save us. Never, Prime Speaker Nexus declared. Even as its homeworld crumbled around them, we will not beg for help from those primitives. But the ethereal collective facing the dissolution of their consciousness finally broke completely. We were wrong about everything. The humans were never primitive. We were too arrogant to see their true value. The confession shattered the last pretense of council authority. If the energy beings who had existed since the dawn of civilization could admit their mistake, what excuse did the others have? The Klaxon delegate, who had been humanity's strongest supporter, stood with tears in his eyes. My people are dying because of your pride. How many more must die before you admit the truth? One by one, the delegates began to break down. The crisis was too severe and the consequences too immediate for pride to matter anymore. The Draconian delegate, whose species had ruled space for millennia, was the first to crack. I propose an emergency resolution. We formally apologize to humanity and request their immediate assistance. I second the motion, said the Slitheri representative. The vote was swift and unanimous. Every delegate who had once mocked humanity now voted to beg for their help. The message was transmitted to Earth with the weight of desperation behind every word. The Galactic Council formally apologizes for our treatment of humanity. We were wrong about everything. We need your help desperately. Our civilizations are dying and we cannot save ourselves. In the Situation Room on Earth, President Moon read the message aloud. The room remained silent as everyone processed the words they had waited months to hear. They are asking for our help, said Admiral Kong. The same beings who called us barbaric now want us to save them. The question is whether we should, replied Defense Minister Park. They showed us no mercy when we needed their support. President Moon looked around the room at the faces of his advisors. These were good people who had been hurt by the galaxy's rejection. But they were also human, and that meant something important. We will help them, he decided, but we will do it on our terms. The response was transmitted immediately. President Moon's face appeared on screens across the galaxy as he delivered humanity's answer. The Galactic Council has apologized, and we accept that apology. However, humanity will not return to the old system. If we are to help, it will be under new conditions. The terms were simple but revolutionary. Humanity would receive full membership and leadership rights in the Council. Human autonomy would be guaranteed. And the species that had voted for human expulsion would provide reparations for the Damage caused by their absence. In the council bunker, the delegates held their breath. They had expected either salvation or rejection, but not negotiation. They are making demands while we die, whispered Prime Speaker Nexus. They are making demands because we need them, corrected the ethereal collective. We have no choice but to accept. The terms were approved within hours. The galaxy's pride had finally been broken by necessity, but outside the bunker the Devour fleet continued its advance. The main force was now only hours away from Nexus Prime, and the question remained whether human intervention would come in time. The breaking point had been reached. Now everyone would discover whether humanity's mercy was stronger than their justified anger. The galaxy waited to see if the species they had rejected would prove to be their salvation. The human fleet that emerged from Earth's solar system was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where once modest patrol ships had protected the outer systems, now massive battlecruisers moved through space, accompanied by swarms of fighter craft. Admiral Kang Junho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars shift as the fleet entered hyperspace. 9 months of isolation had not been wasted. Human engineers had pushed their technology to new heights, preparing for the day when they might face the Devourers alone. All ships report ready for combat, announced Captain Nam Young-soo. The fleet is prepared for Operation Redemption. The Admiral nodded grimly. The operation's name was chosen carefully. Humanity would redeem themselves in the eyes of the galaxy, but they would also redeem the galaxy from its own mistakes. Behind the battle fleet came the medical ships commanded by Dr. Yun-Hei-1. These vessels carried the latest human innovations in biological warfare defense. Begin broadcasting the immunity protocols, she ordered. Every species will receive the genetic modifications needed to resist devourer bioweapons. The gift was given freely without conditions or payment. It was humanity's way of showing that some things transcended politics and pride. The first engagement took place in the Kepler system, where a massive devourer force had been unopposed for weeks. The alien defenders watched in amazement as human tactics tore through enemy formations like a knife through cloth. They are not just fighting the devourers, observed Captain Veltar from his damaged ship. They are destroying them completely. The human military doctrine had evolved during the months of isolation. Every captured devourer vessel had been studied. Every weakness had been catalogued. Every strategy had been perfected. Commander Park Sojin led the marine assault on the Devourer command ship. Her team moved with precision born of endless training against this specific enemy. They knew every corridor and every defensive position. Package delivered, she reported as her team planted charges in the enemy vessel's core. Extraction in 30 seconds. The Devourer command ship exploded in a brilliant flash, taking with it the coordination center for the entire invasion fleet. Within hours, the remaining enemy forces were in full retreat. The liberation of worlds began immediately. Engineer Choi Hai-jin worked around the clock to restore defensive systems on planets that had been attacked. But these new shields were different from the old ones. They were stronger, more adaptive, and designed to learn from each assault. How did you advance so quickly? Asked a local engineer as he watched the installation process. 9 months of focused development, Hai-jin replied. When you prepare to face the galaxy's greatest threat alone, you do not waste time on politics. The speed of the human advance surprised everyone, including the Devourers. Systems that had fallen months ago were liberated in days. The bioweapons that had killed trillions were neutralized by human countermeasures. Dr. Lee Min-woo coordinated the medical response from his command ship. The treatments he had developed during the isolation period were years ahead of anything the aliens possessed. Deploy the universal immunity serum to all affected worlds, he ordered. Priority to the most heavily infected systems. The serum worked like magic. Beings who had been dying from devourer plagues recovered within hours. Entire populations that had been written off as lost were saved by human medicine. The grateful tears of alien civilians were broadcast across the galaxy on the Slitheri homeworld. Where billions had died from bioweapon exposure, the population watched in wonder as human medical teams worked to save their people. The humans have returned, whispered the planetary governor. They came back to save us even after we rejected them. The ethereal collective received emergency repairs to their consciousness matrices. Human engineers worked carefully to restore the harmonic resonators that kept the energy beings stable. You are saving our very existence, the collective said with gratitude. We owe you our lives. The liberation of the Nexus system was swift and decisive. The human fleet surrounded the Devourer forces that had been preparing to destroy the crystalline homeworld. Admiral Kang's voice echoed across all frequencies with calm authority. This is Admiral Kang of the Human Defense Force. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender immediately or face destruction. The Devourers had never faced such overwhelming force. Their bioweapons were useless against humans. Their ships were outmaneuvered by human tactics. Their ancient terror tactics had no effect on human determination. The enemy chose to fight rather than surrender. It was their final mistake. The battle lasted only 3 hours, but it was decisive beyond measure. The Devourer fleet was completely annihilated. Their bioweapons were neutralized. Their invasion was shattered. The galaxy was saved. Prime Speaker Nexus emerged from the underground bunker to find human medical teams treating the wounded in the ruins of the capital. The crystalline being approached Admiral Kang with something approaching humility. You came back, Nexus said quietly. After everything we said about you, after everything we did, you still came back to save us. Admiral Kang looked at the alien leader with understanding in his eyes. That is what friends do. They help each other even when it is difficult, even when it hurts. The reconstruction began immediately. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to rebuild what the Devourers had destroyed. But this time the relationship was different. This time there was mutual respect. Dr. Yoon Hae-won established medical centers on every liberated world. Her teams trained alien doctors in the latest human techniques. Knowledge belongs to everyone, she explained to her staff. We share it freely so that all beings may benefit. The grateful populations of dozens of worlds sent messages of thanks to Earth. The Klaxon Confederation, who had supported humanity from the beginning, was the first to receive full human protection. You stood by us when no one else would, President Moon told their ambassador. We will not forget such loyalty. In the rebuilt council chambers, the ceremony was simple but profound. Ambassador Taeho, who had walked out in disgrace 10 months earlier, now returned to take his place at the head of the council table. The galaxy has learned an important lesson, he said in his inaugural address as the new council president. Power without wisdom is meaningless. Technology without compassion is hollow. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Only by working together can we face the challenges of the universe. The standing ovation lasted for 20 minutes. Every species, every delegate, every being in the chamber rose to honor the humans who had saved them all. The sound echoed through the rebuilt halls like thunder, but perhaps the most meaningful moment came later in private conversation. The Vorthic delegate who had first mocked humanity approached Ambassador Taeho with genuine remorse. We called you primitive and violent, the insect being said quietly. We said you were not worthy of our respect. How can you forgive such blindness? Taeho smiled with the wisdom that comes from true understanding, because that is what civilization really means. It is not about having the most advanced technology or the oldest culture. It is about choosing to help rather than harm, to build rather than destroy, to forgive rather than seek revenge. The galaxy had indeed learned its lesson. The species they had dismissed as primitive had proven to be the most advanced in the ways that truly mattered. Humanity had returned not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as leaders, offering guidance. The council chambers were filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy, but now the humans sat at the center, not in the corner. Their voices were heard with respect, not dismissal. Their contributions were valued, not mocked. Engineer Choi Haijin presented the new defensive network that would protect the entire galaxy. These systems are designed to be maintained by any species, she explained. We will train your engineers so that you are never again dependent on others for your protection. The network was revolutionary in its scope and generosity. Every world would be protected regardless of their political status or economic power. It was humanity's gift to a galaxy that had learned the value of cooperation. Dr. Lee Min-woo announced the establishment of joint research centers where human and alien scientists would work together as equals. The greatest discoveries come from different minds working toward common goals, he said. Together we can solve problems that none of us could handle alone. The research initiatives covered everything from medicine to energy production to space exploration. The galaxy that had once stagnated under rigid thinking now buzzed with innovation and possibility. Commander Park So-jin was appointed head of the new Galactic Defense Force. Her mission was to train combined forces from all species in modern military doctrine. We will never again allow threats like the Devourers to catch us unprepared, she declared. The training programs emphasized cooperation and mutual support. Species that had once viewed each other with suspicion now worked together as brothers in arms. As the months passed, the galaxy transformed beyond recognition. Trade flourished under human protection. Science advanced through human-alien collaboration. Medicine saved lives through human innovation shared freely with all. The beings who had once called humans primitive now looked to them for leadership in every crisis. But the humans did not lord their superiority over others. Instead, they taught and